The delights of Billy Bang and his Chamber Music Society. I hope you'll agree with the fact that I called it a chamber music group. Charlie Bobo Shaw featured on cowbells on this particular session. Thurman Barker, marimba. William Parker, bass. Oscar Sandys, guitar. Ahmed Abdullah, trumpet. And the leader of this group, a new force in music, Billy Bang, violinist, who brings to the idiom of jazz and new music all sorts of inspiration. Billy, good evening. You're there.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, just fine. How are you?
Okay, good.
The composition that just aired out at this end of the line, you might describe and give me the title.
What was that, the Nagual Juliet?
Yes, the Nagual Juliet.
Okay, yes.
It was really inspired by a mystical writer. What was his name?
Carlos Castaneda.
And where does he come from?
Well, actually, he's from a Hispanic origin, but I think he went to school at either UCLA or USC, I believe UCLA, and he went down, sociology major, he went down to where the Indians are, the Yaqui Indians are, and started studying their ways of behavior, the sociological patterns of their life, and what happened was he just started studying how they approached the mystical parts of life, which is to me very similar to the way we approach the music.
Incidentally, for all of you listening in, I'm talking with Billy Bang, the violinist who performed on this composition. He's appearing now at the Artist Quarter, and in a matter of 6 minutes or so, he'll be on stand performing live. And when he performs, if I can only describe, he is so deeply involved with his medium, the violin, in a different way. He is somewhere a cross between Paganini and what else, Billy?
I would say Stuff Smith.
The Fazil of the fiddle, as they called him, one of the pioneers of jazz violin. Indeed. Are you still there?
I'm still here. Someone picked up another phone, I think, at the bar. This is definitely live.
Yeah,
so anything might happen, you know?
All right, well, hang on for
They might have been calling for a cab from here.
Tell me, when did you first hear Stuff Smith? On record or in person? Or
Not in person. I had to go back to actually research Stuff Smith. I mean, it was a shame that he wasn't as visible in my community as he should have been. But when I started playing the violin, I had to go back to research all the black violin players since the plantation days. And apparently, evidently rather, Stuff Smith came up.
And people like Eddie South.
And people like Eddie South and Joe Venuti. I mean, he's not black, but he's playing in the idiom. And a whole bunch of violin players playing in the jazz context.
We could mention Ray Nance and Claude Williams. And
can't forget them, and you can't forget Papa John Creech and what's his other guy? Claude. You said Claude Williams. Oh,
yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of violin players we can look to.
For you, what's been the dominating influence? Is it people like Eric Dolphy and Wilbur Blair?
That's been my influence. Jackie McLean, Eric Dolphy, John Coltrane, Marion Brown. A lot of those musicians have, in fact, been my influence. The violin, I have to study the violin for violin technical aspects, and I have to look to the violin for that reason. We've just been interrupted for a minute, but I listen to the saxophone for the intervals and for their tonal centers and how they breathe.
And that's where Jackie McLean comes in.
That's where Jackie McLean definitely comes in, along with Eric Dolphy, John Coltrane, and a lot of the contemporary musicians I work with even today, like Frank Lowe or Charles Tyler.
In the European classical music, who has inspired you?
Well, from that context, I've been inspired by a lot of the neoclassicisms of contemporary music, such as the Stockhausen, Schoenberg, particularly Bartok's music, who writes for violins and writes for violins in different harmonies and different intervals. I'm interested in intervals and harmonies, particularly.
Well, I know as a member of the audience to sit out in front of you, it is indeed a genuine, positive, and marvelous experience. Mm-hmm. And for those of you listening in, we select a composition called The Shift Below, and here is the maestro, Billy Bang, the violinist who will appear on this performance, to describe that composition. Billy, the elements of The Shift Below and in its mood and its theme.
Okay, basically, Carlos Castaneda, in this particular chapter, all my titles of the tunes are from different chapters in the book. And in this particular chapter, he was writing about how this particular woman would change from a woman to another being, being, perhaps an animal form or whatever, and it would go back and forth. And the Indians, in fact, shift. They do different shifts where they turn into wolves. You might see it or you might not see it, but it's a different shift from people and animals situation. So I try to express that with this music from a poignancy with the violin and with the strength of the bow and the subtleness of the harmonies.
For you, what is the challenge and the mystique of the violin?
Well, the violin has been one of the most mysterious instruments around. I mean, people associate it with the devil quite a bit before Paganini. But I respect it because it's kind of a blue-collar instrument for me. When the first hunters were going out and getting a small game, and they were using their bow and bow and arrows, when they couldn't find enough game to hunt, they just started playing it. So I look at it from the origins of the instrument, and I still put it in that context today. So I try to simplify it and take the mystery out of the instrument itself, and just try to play with a lot of feeling and from a lot of heart and soul. And that's what I do with it. So the challenge is trying to make that towards perfection. And since there's no such thing as perfection, that's what I'm working towards anyhow.
Billy Bang, thank you for taking time out. I know you're headed back on stand at the Artist Quarter.
It will go in about 5 minutes,
And it's good touching base and getting acquainted with you.
Thank you, Leigh. Nice to meet you yesterday, too. My pleasure. Really.
Good performance, good show.
Okay, thank you.
We'll meet again.
Okay, say